Welcome to Bon Jovi Discussions. Today I have my friend Stacy. Finally, how are you?
Yes,
You're
I'm
on the
here.
podcast, finally, right?
I'm so excited.
It's so
Been
good to
living for
finally
this.
have you on.
Thank
So,
you.
so before we get started, how did you become a Bon Jovi fan?
Okay, so this story talk about the universe coming together. Ninth grade. Um, I'm sitting beside my friend. We called her Dory, and she walked in with her morning, Coke and stuff from the store. But she had that week's new Teen Beat or something,
Okay.
and she carefully undid the things to take out the centerfold of Duran Duran, Simon Le Bon, because she's like, "This is all I wanted," and she literally tossed the magazine on my desk, and her and I finished talking, and I looked down. And there is this new guy I haven't seen. Long hair, leopard print scarf. I actually have the picture up right now on my
Okay.
phone.
So I was wondering what year this is, and now I can say we're in the 80s.
This is 1984.
84, okay.
And I, so back then it took radio stations. We had to have like waves, like it came from the West and it came from, and I grew up in the South, in the deep South. And so I didn't hear this song until like February, March. I didn't hear Runaway. And then when I heard it, I was like, because I play piano, and that was one of the first hooks because it was a rock song,
Yeah.
but it was starting with keyboards.
Yeah, and
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 I,
and just a side note there, at that time, you really didn't have many bands back then, especially in '84, that did have keyboards in a rock band. It was just
yeah,
two guitarists and a bass and a drummer, and that was it. But sorry, I wanted to add that in there.
yeah, no, yeah, and that's what, like, that was the first thing I went, huh, okay. And so, I'm like 14, so I'm saving my babysitting money, and we got all of our information back then from the radio. And so it was like 2 days after the magazine picture that my friend gives me a ride home, and we've got our Magic 105 on, rock station, and the DJ says, "Hey, we got a new band out of New Jersey. This is their single." And it starts playing Runaway. And I'm like, stop the flipping car. What is going on? And then a couple of days later, I get some more money from babysitting, and I called a friend and I said, "You've got to take me to this Discount Records." And with my chainsaw to saw through the cassette tape. I get home, I plop that cassette tape into my double speakered boombox. This is so 80s, right?
Yeah, we're back in the
Um,
day here.
and the second song, I think it was the second. Is Love Lies the second or third track?
Roulette's the second track on
Second.
the
Okay,
CD.
so
Yeah.
Love Lies. Love Lies starts playing, and I'm like, oh, okay, we got
Oh yeah,
another.
it's on on the second side. I'm sorry, I think you meant the second track. Yeah, I love.
Yeah, yeah. And when I know this sounds so creepy, but I'm musically inclined. I play the piano. I wanted to play drums, like the whole thing, and I'm laying in my floor reading the liner notes, and then Love Lies comes on, and when he hits that part, and I can't sing it anymore because I can't sing anymore, but he hits that hold on, see if it's loud enough that you can hear it, but
Oh, I can't play music on the podcast.
okay.
Yeah, it'll get
Now
loud.
you're gone, the pain goes on and
Oh
on.
yeah, yep. I
I
know.
was like, this is it. This is,
Yeah.
and I am a loyal chickie. Sorry about the music. I'm a loyal chick, and it all became what's been frustrating and why I'm so excited to talk to you is that I wanted to talk about the band and the music. And whenever I run into somebody, they always talk about how cute John is. Okay. Now, this, by the way, I turned 50 in 2020.
Happy
We were on
birthday.
lockdown. My
Congratulations.
girlfriend's like, what can we do? And I'm like, let's pin the guitar on Bon Jovi. Like, and then I had a pinata and I had just stuff that like, just to make
Yeah.
2020 go better. But was he cute? Well, yeah, he was cute, but so was George or Michael, Brett Michaels, and so was like the list, John Taylor from Duran Duran. Like we had cute guys, so it had nothing to do with his looks for me. It was when he hit that particular bar
Yeah.
in the song that I was like, this is my band. And up until then, it had been Journey.
Yeah.
And as I listened to the entire Runaway album, Love Lies had me hook, line, and sinker
Is that your favorite song?
from that album.
Okay. What's
I
your favorite
can't,
song?
I,
Okay. That's okay.
it
So
is mood dependent for
yeah.
sure.
So what we're gonna do tonight, this is gonna be a fun, and you thought of this idea, and I was like, okay, let's do it. So what we're gonna do today is we are gonna go through each studio album, not compilation, but a studio album, and just kind of talk about what the album means to us.
Okay.
So let's start from we'll take turns going first on each album. So let's go to the first one. We are gonna talk about the 1984 debut album, and you are my guest, so you get to go first.
Nice. Okay, so besides Love Lies, the whole thing about Runaway. Oh, let me back up really quick. My friend
Okay.
Dory, by the way, her name is Dorothea.
Ah,
Right?
okay.
So I'm living in Little Rock, and my neighbor her family come down from Chicago every summer, and she has a nephew named Matthew, and I fell in love with him and
Oh.
was so in love with him. And so when Runaway came out, I was literally gathering bus schedules and saving money because I was going to go up to Chicago and marry him at 14. Because we know that,
Yeah, yeah,
our
yeah.
brains are not formed by then. But that was my connection to that first album,
Yeah. Wow.
for sure.
And did you end up marrying him later on?
No, but I have talked to him, and I'd have killed him.
Yeah, glad you. That's all right. So for me, the debut album, what it means to me, and I really didn't put. I want to kind of go into this fresh without any kind of rehearsing in my mind what I was going to say. But for me, I remember. Let me back up. So for me, what's special about this album is that it's the band's very first album, and a lot of these are songs that John wrote before there was even a band.
Hmm.
Um, what I like about this album when I listen to it is the talent that not only John but Richie, David, Tico, Hugh, Alec all bring as a band, and the chemistry that they have so early on. You know,
Yes.
what I say about the debut and 700 albums is that a lot of those songs those songs were all different, and they were ways of finding out what works for the band, what didn't work, what worked. And especially John, just hearing his voice, and you knew that he was going to be something, that the
Yep.
band was going to be something.
He
So
definitely stood up. Yeah.
that's what I love about the first two albums is just testing what worked for them, what didn't work for them. And I have to say my favorite on this album is Roulette. That opening line,
Mm.
Bet the Black comes in, red crimes of passion rule my head. And a lot of these songs on this album are about, being that young kid, because John would have been, 20 to 22 years old when he wrote this. So, just going through breakups and, falling
Yep.
in love with somebody and, just,
Yep.
everything that a
Getting really
young
bad
man
tattoos.
everything that a young man goes through. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much what I love about this album is that stuff. So all right, so next album is 7800. Came out in March of 85. Um, what I love about, like I said, it kind of goes back into the debut, the band kind of working at what worked, what didn't work for them. I really love Richie's guitar work on this album. It is a lot
Mhm.
louder,
Mhm.
abrasive, edgier, if that makes sense. Um, I think Tico and Richie especially, their chemistry on this album is really great. Very key heavy, as
Yeah.
well, which is great because not a lot of bands had that back then. Um,
Well, they've got a professional musician starting out with Dave.
yeah.
you know.
My favorite on this, Price of Love, another second track of the album, Price of Love. I love John's vocals, and I love the way that he drives it in the verses into the chorus, and yeah, it's a great album. All right,
Yeah.
your turn.
Um, okay, so oh my gosh, I'm having major brain issues right now.
That's
Um, the song about he's in the war and he basically goes up to a geisha. Which song is that? Oh my gosh, my brain. Anyway, um, there is that song that I cannot think of right now, and that was the one that told me they had this talent of storytelling.
um, there's In and Out of Love, Price of Love, Only Lonely, King of the Mountain, Silent Night, Tokyo Road, Hardest Part,
Tokyo Road, thank you.
Tokyo Road.
Yeah. When I listened to that one, I was like, this, I felt like I was there with them, walking the streets,
Yeah,
like, doing the whatever. And then, just and then all the imagination of going up to the red light. But it, it really told me that, like, that was the second punch that I got was they're going to be storytellers, which
yeah,
any of us that know music and have taken the history classes in college and all that know that music is storytelling.
absolutely.
And they had that from the second album. I know John's not necessarily a fan of that album.
I
Um,
know. It's a shame because it's such a fan favorite. Fans love this album, and I think 7800 is probably the better of the two in the fan base. Um, yeah,
yeah.
it's a shame he doesn't like the album. I think it's great.
Well, I mean, the cover, I don't blame him.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I mean, it's definitely 80s, but I wish they would have
Yeah.
done like the back photo right here.
Yes.
The whole
Yeah.
band there. That's kind of what upsets me a little bit is that the whole band's not included in the. But then again, what sells and the
Right.
of John Bon Jovi and but it's whatever.
When he hits that stage, he knows how to sell it. And unfortunately, this is one of my peeves with loving music and as much as I do, and especially this band, is that I'm all about John's vocals as much as I'm about, I mean, or Tico. Like I'm obsessed with Tico.
I know I love watching
David
him and
and
yeah,
Richie and John's harmonizing. Like there's so much to this other than
yeah.
they were cute. Like,
It's
don't care.
the band chemistry. Music.
Yes, they had it. They had
Yeah,
something that you knew they were never going to be playing.
yeah,
No offense to these other bands, but that even at the height of like Def Leppard, it just even in that moment, I felt like this is 80s, right? But
absolutely.
Bon Jovi's got something in each album, I was growing with them too, you know?
Absolutely. And that's one
So
thing that I'm jealous of is that you got to be there from the beginning. I became a fan in 2000 with Crush, so 25 years, but to have, for you to be able to have grown with them, from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s to the 2010s and 20s and blah, blah, blah. It's great,
yeah,
a lot
it's
of involvement.
fantastic.
So let's go to the next album.
Okay.
The third album, Slippery When Wet, August 1986, the holy grail of the band's history. One of the biggest rock albums of all time, the Make It or Break It album. Real quick before I know it's your turn to go
No,
first.
you're good. You're good.
This was the album that, with the debut of 7800, it was them trying to find their sound. And pretty much the record company said, this is the Make It or Break It album. Either so long story short, they hit it big. This is,
Is this the first time that they brought in Desmond?
yes, yes.
Okay. Because that was going to be this for me is getting the cassette tape, coming home, putting it in, freaking out, but reading the liner notes. And I kept seeing John Shanks and Hugh, but he was always in the background, and I didn't even know who he was because we
Yeah.
didn't have internet then. But I kept seeing Desmond Child, Desmond Child, Desmond Child, and I
Really
knew
good.
that he had written some Kiss stuff and Cher stuff, And
Yeah.
I am
Hi,
obsessed
Jack.
with Desmond Child too.
Yeah, I've had him on the podcast about a year ago.
Oh my gosh, I have to go
Nice,
back and read.
yeah, nicest guy. Yeah, go listen to that. It's a great episode. He's so talented. Anyway, so what does it slippery mean to you?
Um, Honestly, that was I turned 16. I felt like I had been introduced to some ideas that I didn't have to stay in Little Rock, that I could go do whatever I wanted and be whatever I wanted. A friend, my friends and I would play something. It's politically very incorrect, but we called it the Chinese fire drill. And every time the cassette would be on in my girlfriend's car and Wild in the Streets came on, you come to a stop and then everybody has to change spots in the car
Oh
before
my
it
gosh.
turns green. It's like
Yeah.
stupid as heck, but
It's fun though.
every time I hear Wild in the Streets, like I am back there, rotating. One of us, because there's a couple of us that didn't have license yet, and some of us did, and so it was literally like a roulette of who's going to be in the car next on my wheel.
Yeah. What's your favorite track on this album?
Um, oh my gosh, all of them?
All of them? Okay.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's the epitome of the band, and
Yeah.
it's where I felt like they took it. They said, "You want this record company? Here you go. Try
Yeah.
this on exercise."
Yeah.
So it was everything. Like I literally would listen to the album in entirety and just listen for Tico's drums, and then I'd hit play it again and listen just to Richie, and then I'd play it again and listen to the keyboards parts, and then I'd play it again for the lyrics, and it just I think I went through three cassettes.
Oh my gosh. That was the same thing for me. I remember, we're not talking about compilations here, but I'll just add this as a quick note. I remember getting Crush on CD in 2000. Loved it so much, but I played it so much that it drove my parents nuts. And so my dad was finally like, "Look, I can't listen to Crush one more time. I'll take you to the store." And I was also begging to get some other albums.
Yeah.
So my dad took me to the store. He said, "You can either get one CD or you can get two cassettes." Well, there was, six, seven other albums that I wanted to get in the band's catalog. So I was like, "Okay, I'll get two cassettes because I have two albums to listen to." So I picked Blaze of Glory and Crossroad. And I played those albums so much. I think the cassette player ate the tape within a week. And so yeah, but it was yeah, that was my little story there.
Yeah.
So for me, for Slippery, it kind of goes into that story actually. So I got Crush first, Blaze of Glory, Crossroad. I think I got the debut, the New Jersey. So Slippery was actually at the very end because I had already heard I wanted to get the albums because I haven't heard those songs yet.
Hmm.
And so I already heard Prayer on the radio, Bad Name on the radio, and Wanted. And of course I was excited. I was like, okay, I already heard some of those songs. I'll get that album later. And I was 8 years old, and people say, yeah, Slippery's their biggest album. Slippery's their biggest album. And even since I was a little kid, I never liked to get into cliches. I like to be the oddball out and just be like, no, I have a different opinion.
You are my brother from another mother. I'm telling you, I do the same thing. If I know something, like, and that's why when something comes on, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love Living on a Prayer," and I'm sitting back here going, "But have you heard
Exactly.
Captain
So
Crab?"
so I got Slippery, and I do it. It's a fantastic album. Yeah, it's an album that really shows. It's a fantastic album. Now I would have put Edge of a Broken Heart on it and stuff like
Oh
that.
my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
but
That is that CD. My best friend, I know we don't going to talk about compilations, but when she sent me the box set, because I was right in the middle of babies and not sleeping and didn't even know it was coming out, and she surprised me for my birthday, and I popped in that third CD, and Edge of a Broken Heart came on, and I am right back to because they played it on the
yeah,
radio because it was on that movie or something.
Disorderlies, yeah,
And then that whole
that's
like
fantastic.
Tico's on there and everybody gets highlighted on that third disc. And I'm like, this disc needs to be like framed.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this album here, my favorites never say goodbye.
Mm,
I love it, and I remember back in the '86. Well, I don't remember, but I know people, talking with friends, '86, '87. It was always everyone's prom, and me at 2011 or whatever year I graduated high school. I wanted it so badly at my prom, but yeah. To be honest with you, it was an album I really didn't listen to very often. I loved it, but just it's
yeah,
one of those albums that people, I actually love the deeper tracks on it more than I love the hits. Without Love, I Die for You, Out in the Streets, Never Say Goodbye. I love those more than Prayer and Bad Name. And those are fantastic songs
right,
too. And
right.
here is an opinion that pisses everybody off, and I'll say it a million times. I prefer the This Left Feels Right version of Wanted more than the Slippery version. Now, Slippery version is great.
You're blowing my brain,
Yeah,
Jerry. Jerry, you and I are thinking the same thing. Oh my gosh, I can't even. I can't
yeah,
even. When I popped that in the first time, I was like, oh, this has got soul.
yeah.
I do too. I
Yeah.
agree
It's
completely.
but I tell you what, I've always loved the album, but I've earned even more appreciation of this album. If anybody that's listening to this episode, if you have Apple Music and you have a good AirPod, like that has the spatial audio and Dolby or a good sound system, listen to it. It is fantastic. It takes these songs to a whole new level.
Yeah, it
So
does. It
do
was
that.
such a breath of fresh air for me
Yeah.
because that's all that was playing on the radio were,
Yeah.
were those three hits, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
So the next one is New Jersey. And so obviously with Slippery, John was worried, was this going to be a one-hit wonder album? And, so the band had to go back in the studio to prove that they weren't just a one-hit wonder. And that's one thing I love about John is he has that will to keep going and just keep proving himself. And so the band went in to record New Jersey hoping to get a hit. They got five, I think five number ones on this album.
yeah.
So for me, this is actually my favorite 80s Bon Jovi album. I remember getting this as a kid and I was obs I think this was the second first CD that I got. I got them all, I got Crush on CD, then Blaze and Crossroad on cassette, but then I got New Jersey. So I think this is actually my fourth album that I got, and I just fell in love with it. I thought it
Yeah.
was just fantastic.
And
Um,
iconic cover too. I've got
yeah,
like three t-shirts and with
yeah.
that cover.
So, so there is a song on here that has helped me so much. There's a song called "Stick to Your Guns" on this album, and so when I was a teenager, um, as any teenager does, you have a trouble fitting in and figuring out who you are.
Mhm.
And I remember I was really going through that because I knew that I liked who I was, and I didn't want to change who I was. And here's a perfect example for the song, "Stick to Your Guns." I always thought that it was about sticking to who you are and being who you believe in and not changing who you are for anybody. And just pretty much just believing in yourself. And so I remember in high school, I grew up with a bunch of people they were hillbilly rednecks. Nothing wrong with that, just painting the picture here. And everybody made fun of me for loving Bon Jovi. They're like, "Why are you so obsessed with this band?" Blah blah blah. And I remember the only way that I'm gonna get these people to, and I wore Bon Jovi shirts to school every day. And I
Mhm.
remember someone told me, if you didn't like Bon Jovi so much, these kids would like you. So I thought to myself, okay, so if I give up something that I absolutely love, I'll get people to finally like me. Okay. So, but on the other hand, if I do that, then I don't have something that I absolutely love, and that's part of my identity. And I chose, you know what? I love this band so I'm not going to give up something to appease somebody.
Yep.
And thankfully, I've made so many friends in this fan base years later. And 25 years later, I still love this band. So one of the things that this song taught me was that to never give up who you are, stick to your guns, stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
So that I think that's like the biggest. I could go on and on about this album, but that's probably the biggest take from this album of what it means to me is that that song really taught me that. You know, be who you want
Yeah.
to be and be who you are. I know that's welcome to wherever you are later on, but all right, your turn.
So I did not have a lot, like I wasn't a cheerleader, I wasn't a jock,
Me either.
I didn't have any, I had friends in all of those. I could sit at any table and be okay at lunch, right? But I just never really fit in either. And so I had the same best friend from kindergarten to 10th grade, and then my family moved me to a different high school the middle of 10th grade. That summer, going into my sophomore or my junior year, is when I met my what who would end up being my best friend, Stephanie. And she was the same as me. Like those notebooks that you'd write notes and then slip it to him in the hallway because we didn't have texting, you know. I have those still, and once in a blue moon we gossip, but it was mostly about she comes into my space again, I'm gonna throat punch her kind of thing because
Yeah,
I got the hood rat going
that's
on. I'm
funny.
not gonna lie. So blood on blood for me means a lot.
Yeah.
But the song, and I hope I'm getting this right. My brain is just really struggling lately, but
Okay.
love for sale.
Oh yeah.
Like I've listened to that 5 or 6 times in the car this week because it just makes me happy because I read that they were pretty much drunk and somebody kept recording and
Yeah.
I'm like, and if you get a song like that when they're drunk and you're just recording, like,
Yeah.
you get the rest of that album. But Blood on Blood means a lot to me, but Love for Sale just makes me so happy. It
Yeah.
just makes me laugh.
It's such a fun way to end the album. And like you said, and I think John has said this in interviews, they were drunk and they just kind of kept recording and album was pretty much done as John says at the end of the song. And I think it's great because it's a time capsule song because it shows you the band who were, you know, in their late 20s, early 30s, just having a fun time, you know, enjoying the ride.
Yeah,
You know, there's other great songs, you know, like Lay Your Hands on Me, that's, you know, about the fans and the band, that connection. Bad Medicine, obviously, that's just such a fun song. That pumps me up. Born to
yeah.
Be My Baby, Living in Sin, Blood, Homebound, Wild is the Wind. You know, Wild is the Wind. I just did a podcast episode about this a couple months ago.
I think I just watched that one. Yeah,
Oh, did you? Thank you.
yeah,
But you know, like I said in that episode, you know, that song was all about it's so dynamically different in the way that it's up and down, and builds you up, takes you down, builds you up, takes you down. You know, then and then back to kind of stick to your guns. You know, I love that ride. You know, this is where people miss out on not listening to an album from start to finish.
oh
You know,
yes.
with Ride Cowboy Ride and Stick to Your Guns, incredible transition. And I feel like it's a crime to listen to Stick to Your Guns without Ride Cowboy Ride first. You
Yeah.
know, and then you got I'll Be There for You. I tell you, this is funny. So we're talking about what this album means to us. I'm kind of reflective because um, I remember everybody that I had friends come over, or I had, you know, a girlfriend at the time, and they'll be like, "Show me a good Bon Jovi song." It was never my favorite song, so I don't know why I
Oh,
always
please
picked this
don't
one out,
show
but I
me that.
always did. But I picked "I'll Be There for You," and I remember always skipping, and I can still remember. And I kind of still will say this. I think this is probably the best, one of the best parts in the band's catalog is you go 2 minutes in, 20 seconds in, and you know, baby, my hands are dirty, but I wanted to be your Valentine, and so on. I would always show everybody that part. It's like, how do you not like this? You know? Um, so I used to drive everybody nuts with that, even my dad. And then you got 99 in the Shade, and then Love for
Oh
Sale.
my gosh, that's one of my happy songs
Yeah.
too.
So let's get
Yeah.
into the next album. You
All
get to
right.
go first. Keep the Faith.
Keep the faith. So this is when it gets eerie about how much it's. right? Because they took that little break. And my understanding is they all kind of went to dabble in, Tico's paintings and
Yeah.
David's Broadways and all that kind of stuff. And uh, don't Stranger in This Town, like that was that whole time period
Yeah.
thing. So what was happening at that time is I had gotten engaged a couple of years before, and he had a side chick, and she got pregnant, and so four
Oh,
months before the wedding, it was called off, and I never thought I'd go back to Little Rock, but I found myself back. And I was like, okay, what do I want? What do I want? I mean, I'm 22. What do I want in life? What do I want to be? What do I want to, whatever. And I just felt like I needed to get outside of myself. And so I went for 2 years and I did humanitarian work. And so keeping the faith, I always think of the cross, little cross,
yeah.
grain or whatever, and believe is just the song that went with the background, like
Yeah.
the background of my life at the time was just believe that things are going to get better, believe that you're going to figure it all out, that your higher power is going to help you know where you need to be. But that was the best 2 years of my life was just helping people working in, the I think this is why I really I don't ever want to meet any of them in the band, but I would love to sit down for 2 hours for tea with Dorothea
Yeah.
because
Oh,
I think we share the same heart that way. So I just spent 2 years, in Southern California working the homeless shelters and um, whenever there were the fires or whatever was going on, I was there during the big earthquake back in '94. I was
wow.
there, so just trying to help people get back on their
Yeah.
feet,
God bless you. Need
and
more
doing
need more
doing
people in the world like that. That's for sure.
yeah. So that for me, it's not. It's the whole album. It's not Believe is the only just kind of because it goes with the title of the album is just keep the faith. Because if that's what I can tell anybody to this day, is just literally keep the
Keep the
faith.
faith. Yeah.
It's going to get better. If you're 8, it's going to get better. If you're 18, it's going to get better. If you're 28, it's going to get better. It's, things get better. You find your sweetheart and you have the adorable little daughter, like
Yeah.
things get better. So,
It takes opening up a lot of wrong doors to find the right one.
yeah.
Well, so for me, for Keep the Faith, a little bit of band history here. Obviously, Slippery, New Jersey, they were just huge. They were the biggest band in the world that, in my opinion, they still are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they wrapped up, in 1990, 91 with the New Jersey tour. And then obviously they were so burnt out that they all went, separate ways. John did Blaze of Glory, Richie did Stranger in This Town. And nobody knew the future of the band. Obviously the press was coming in and saying band's over. That was no one ever. John has said, and Richie and everybody, that no one ever even talked about that. It was just the press, getting in the middle of it. But so the band, long story short, rebirthed. They came back together, and what the sad part about the early 90s was that hair metal was dying off.
Hmm.
I've been actually listening to a band called Trickster the last few
Oh, yeah.
days. And I always say that they could have had a bigger career if they didn't start out so late. They started out in 84, but 90s is when they were really starting to get big. But again, early 90s hair metal was dying off, so like bands like Firehouse and Warrant and Skid
Poison.
Row
Yeah.
and Trickster, blah blah blah, were dying off because grunge was moving in. And so a band like Bon Jovi, how they gonna still be successful? And they,
I
stuck to
do
this.
have to throw in really quick that I did I had a cassette tape of Triumph
Yeah.
and I absolutely loved it. My husband's also really into music and his brother was a Rush fan and he says,
Oh,
"No, it sounds too much like Rush." And I'm like, "I don't know what it is. I just know I like them."
right.
And then fast forwarding to Phil X, I was like, "Huh, huh."
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah.
So for Keep the Faith, for me, the reason I want to give kind of that backstory is that's it's one of my favorite album covers is Keep the Faith. I just love everyone's hands in, John fired Doc McGee, so it's new management, new vision, and the band just believing in John. So pretty much that album, everyone's hands in are just saying, we all believe in each other. We're gonna move forward. We're gonna do what we achieved to set out what they set out to do.
Thank you for
Um,
that because I hadn't thought of it like that before. So
yeah.
that
So
adds to it.
this is my favorite 90s, but now really outside of the solo work, you only got two studio albums and a compilation and then some solo work. But this is
Yeah.
my favorite 90s Bon Jovi album. I John's vocals on this album is just insanely incredible. A lot of people will praise Slippery New Jersey, but I think Keep the Faith knocks those two albums out of the park. Um,
Because he was getting voice lessons and learning how to,
yeah.
take care of himself too.
Yeah.
So
So John was 30 at this point, and I mean, I could go on for 20 minutes talking about this album, but let me shorten it up. My One of my absolute favorite songs is "I Want You." And "In These Arms" and "Bed of Roses" are fantastic, phenomenal. Absolutely love those songs. But "I Want You" is just blows those two songs out of the water.
you feel it.
Yeah, I never wanted the stars. I never shot for the moon. I like them right where they are. All I want is you.
Yep.
And I just love that album. I love that song. Another favorites though are "Bed of Roses" in These Arms, but one that I've really, really gotten into lately, probably in the last few years, is Fear. When I was younger getting this album, I couldn't get into Fear. I always skipped it. But in the last few years, I just absolutely love it because that song really displays John's vocals, especially at the end when he's screaming fear and you hear that echo. Oh, it's just
Yeah.
incredible. But
Yeah.
yeah, I Blame on the Love of Rock and Roll. I always say that's like the
Oh, I
that's
love it.
like the anthem from Bon Jovi fans, like blame it on the love for Bon Jovi, and this is why we love this band, blah, blah, blah. So
I
yeah,
I decided after I heard that song that if I ever got a tattoo, which I don't have any, but if I ever did get a tattoo, it would be a vaccination needle,
yeah, that's funny.
like a vinyl and a vaccination needle, because
Clever.
I love that.
Yeah. So the next one is These Days.
Yep.
So a little band history. Um, Band record it took they put out Crossroad in '94 and then they worked on These Days. So for me, when I was a kid, this was actually the very last album that I got. I don't know why it was. It just was.
Hmm.
But I was probably 9 or 10 at this point. Um, but I remember getting it and I couldn't get into it. Being a kid, you like the fun songs like Bad Name and It's My Life and Bad Medicine because they're fun sing-along songs.
Yeah.
This album I couldn't get into, except for Something for the Pain because that was kind of fun to sing along to. But I couldn't relate to any of the songs because it was very heavy subject matter.
Yeah.
And but as I've gotten older and started going through your relationships and breakups and losing loved ones and hardships and questioning religion and this and that, I've learned to really love and grow with this album. I can relate a lot to the lyrics, and it's not like I never liked the album. It's just I couldn't get into it when I was a kid. But
Right.
once I
But you're the age now
well,
that
once I be
this album's talking to,
yeah,
right?
right when I became a teenager, so 15 years ago, I really started to really appreciate and love this album. And I'll always say this, I truly think this is the band's greatest work. And I always say I've said this a million times, but 90s was the peak of the band,
Mm-hmm.
vocally,
Mm-hmm.
lyrically,
Mm-hmm.
and as a band. These Days is the peak of that peak. I mean, this everything about this album is perfect, and I could just go on and on and on. But my absolute favorite song on this album is "Hearts Breaking Even."
Mm.
I love the way that John sings it because he makes you believe it. He makes you believe in the emotion that he's trying to convey, especially in the "Hey, I lied, yeah, I cried, hell, I almost died." Just the way that he sings
Yep.
those lines right there makes you really feel the heartbreak, the vulnerability, and the emotion that he is trying to convey. But a lot of these songs on this album are about, heartbreak and question and like, hey God, questioning me, why all these terrible things happening. Lie
Isn't
to
it
me.
amazing? Like, yeah, this came out in 95, so this album is, I don't do math, however many years old
Yeah,
now,
30 years.
30 years old. It's
Yeah.
still like it applies more today than it did in
Yeah.
95, right?
Yeah,
Just,
like lie to me about struggling. Um, and it just goes on and on and on. But it's crazy to think that, um, and I believed it too, that this is a very pessimistic album. But as John said, it's not. John actually wrote it during one of his most optimistic times. And if you listen to it over and over and over, you start to think that it's an album that it's about togetherness. That we'll get through this together and let's find that end of the tunnel. It's kind of like Someday I'll Be Saturday Night, which was actually
mhm.
intended for this album. But it's about, I may not be okay today, but I'll be okay here on,
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
So yeah, that's, I could praise this album all day. I think it's fantastic. I hate that it's so underrated, especially in America.
Well,
Um,
because the headlines at the time were, "Oh my gosh, John cut his hair," instead of, "Oh
yeah,
my gosh, here's this amazing album." And
right.
it just goes to show, it's all about the sailing, like you said
Yeah,
before. But it kind of it just ticked me off every time because I'm like, you people are missing some of the most amazing lyrics and
I
songs
know.
and all of that stuff. So,
And that's the thing too, is that, in 95, you had the grunge, which was starting to move away, and then you had the pop. And so there weren't room for bands like Bon Jovi on radio because a lot of these songs weren't like I was when I was a kid. They weren't catchy, and
mhm.
that's what American radio wanted. They wanted something catchy. They didn't care about it's like today's radio. If it's catchy, great. It doesn't matter what the song. I mean, you hear some really stupid songs nowadays, but because it's catchy, people like it. But anyway, so what is these days?
That's one of the things I'm so grateful for finding you, my new little brother,
Mhm.
is that you're that generation that's gonna keep it. And I know, yes, it's Bon Jovi, but you also listen to other things, and so you're gonna raise your kids listening to albums as a whole and really getting into things to a point where like you're not going to just hit stream, you're going to be really invested in what you're listening to and not just be fed. So I was
Exactly.
so excited when I found discovered you anyway. So
Thank you.
this album for me comes down to the simple hold on one second. I've got my cheat notes here. Diamond ring right here. Found my man. 30 years now,
Congratulations, that's
married.
great.
And
I always love hearing older people. I'm going on a side tangent here, but I always love when I hear people that have been together for 30 years. My generation, they have one fight and they give up.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
there's days my wife and I are ready to kill. Well, more so, my wife is ready to kill me, but she's still here. So
yeah.
anyway, sorry, I would just go on a side
Well,
tangent.
no, but I think it goes back to saying like they took that break because they had just had two mega hits and then the touring and everything. And I think I even saw a quick interview where John's talking about Dorothea driving him to a therapist because it was just so much like just all of a sudden, and they just needed
Well,
that bit of space. And I
yeah,
think that that's exactly what happened with me and why I keep going back to they're the soundtrack of my life is because I took that space for me so that when my best friend of 5 years all of a sudden got cute and then told me he loved me, I was like, let me think about this for a minute.
yeah,
Just a good guy, just a good guy. But it's because I had that space. And
yeah.
I think that space that they had between albums too was just, they were getting their healing and they were figuring themselves out too. Because I can't imagine having to navigate
No,
Hollywood and press and fans and everything else. It's just too
right.
crazy. So,
Uh, So next one is Crush. You get to go first on this one because I went on.
Okay,
Yeah, so
so
Crush.
Crush.
A little bit of, I guess, just so we can kind of keep up with the
Yeah,
big,
yeah,
you know. So Crush came, so These Days came out in 95, and a lot of like the general fans think, well, Bon Jovi didn't do anything for 5 years. Wrong. John did Destination Anywhere, Richie did Undiscovered Soul, and then David started recording for his, well, On a Full Moon and then Lunar Eclipse, which is pretty much the same in 2000.
yeah.
On a Full Moon came out in 95, into 95. But anyway, and then John did a bunch of movies. John, what, 10
TV
movies?
shows.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously in 99, 98, 99, they started writing and recording for, at that time was Sex Cells. And a lot of John really wanted to keep working at it and decide Sex Cells was going to come out in 99. So if you watch the real life music video that was for Ed TV, you'll see a Sex Cells Bon Jovi coming in summer 1999 or something like that.
Okay.
But then it got changed to June 2000 and the album became Crush. So a lot of the Sex Cells demos didn't make it to Crush, and hopefully we get a box set of those one day. But yeah, so Crush came in 2000, and it's a poppier, which I'll get into that in a little bit. But anyway, so what does the album mean to you?
For me, the backstory or the soundtrack going on was I was living in northeast eastern Pennsylvania. And we had moved there, and I was pregnant, and then I had another one, and so my life was all kind of about that. Had some pretty severe postpartum depression going on, that whole type of thing. But I have been moving every 2 years since 1986. And so 2000 comes along, and my husband comes home and he goes, I think it's time. And I'm like, to move, to get out of here. I wasn't a fan of Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm just going to say it. Fan of The Office, not a fan of the city. And
Oh,
so I wanted out because I had lived everywhere, like at this point. And I was like, we've been here 2 years, it's time to get. And he goes, no, I think we need to buy a house. And so we bought our first house in literally a two-story town.
oh my gosh.
I've got a picture of the village hall where the police operated from, all of the rescues operated from, the mayor operated from, and it's got the name of the village that we lived at or whatever, but it was literally all of these old 1800, homes, and it was just this two-story town. And we were the only house on our street to buy a ranch. I mean, the basement was
Oh,
finished, but ranch style. And so for me, I honestly didn't know that this came out until a year later.
all 2001.
But
Oh,
the two-story town is what I've connected. I mean, I could go on and on forever because if you held a gun to my head, stand by your guns. What was it? Yeah, my guns.
stick to your guns. Yeah.
If you held a gun to my head, I would say Captain Crash
Ooh, that's a good one.
is probably my favorite
Wow.
because it just makes me happy. And when I when I was in the store, like at Walmart, and well, let me just go see what's going on in the music department, because all my whole life was Barney and Teletubbies and all. And I see this new album, and I'm like, what the? And so I get in the car and put it in, and then it comes around to that Captain Crash, and it was the first. I'm gonna get emotional. I don't, and I'm not an emotional person.
Okay.
It was the first time in a year and a half that I had smiled
Oh,
because the postpartum was pretty severe, and
yeah.
it wasn't until it lifted. And now I go back and now I don't connect it with the postpartum. I just connect it with happiness
Wow.
and with I could have been the girl, you know,
Yeah.
sharing lipstick with Ziggy.
Yeah.
And to this day, every time it's on, I try so hard to get in those, Bonnie and Clyde and
Yeah.
and try to do that without messing up. But
Right.
yeah, that's that when I found it, I felt crushed. And
Yeah.
that's the song that lifted me up out of that. And
That's
I know
amazing.
some of that seems so like cliche, And so I kind of pull back from wanting to share because I don't want to
Oh,
be cliche in that way. But we're coming up on another song that literally
yeah,
saved my life.
absolutely. Well, so for me, Crush was what started it all for me. I was a 8-year-old boy,
Yeah.
May of 2000, and so obviously, I was sitting in front of a TV watching, just going through channels and VH1. I always loved watching music videos. And all of a sudden, It's My Life video came on. Crush
Mhm.
wasn't out yet. That didn't come out till June. But so It's My Life was out there promoting the album. And I thought it was so cool that this guy was so dedicated to see his favorite band. The song was catchy. So for an 8-year-old, It's My Life is really catchy. And I just love the way that I thought the band looked so cool, blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
so in my room, I would wait for the song to come on the radio so I could record it. Never got lucky because I'd have like this little cassette tape that would record, anything that was on the radio. It
Yes.
never came on. So every morning before school, the bus would pick me up at like 7:15. So I'd hurry and get ready for school, get a little bit of TV time, and hope that the video would come on. I got lucky that it would come on. Other times I'd have to catch a school bus. But every time that it came on, I was mesmerized by it. So I knew that Crush was coming out in a few weeks. So those few weeks, I begged my parents over and over and over, please get me the album. I'm gonna graduate the. I think I was in second grade at the time or whatever. But I was like,
That's crazy.
I got good grades. Please get me the album. My parents just kept saying, we'll
Um,
see, we'll see, we'll see. So release date came, and they my parents took me to like day camp. You went for the day, it was kind of like a day camp, it was
yeah,
day camp,
yeah.
whatever. So all day I was like, please, I'm gonna be on my best behavior. After this, we're gonna go to the store. We're gonna get the album. So I get in My dad picked me up, and I said, "Can we please go to the store?" I was good, didn't get in any trouble. My dad said, "It's not today. It's not a good day to get the album." I'm like, "Oh." So I was bummed and pissed off on the way home. Get home, my dad said, "Go to your room, get changed. We're gonna have dinner." Blah blah blah. Go to my room to get changed, and on my dresser, right here, on the dresser, I immediately played it. And I played it so much. I played it in the car with my pick because once in a while my dad would say, "Pick an album, we'll play it in the car." Listen to it in my bedroom all the time. And kind of like I said earlier, drove my parents so nuts with it that they said, okay, get another album to listen to. And so I already shared that story. But
There's a little quip
so,
about the video. Do you know who that guy is?
yeah, I have his name.
I can't remember his real name. I
Yeah,
just know that I'm a
yeah.
Blue Bloods fan, and he's the youngest kid on the Blue Bloods. So
Oh, is he?
Jamie
Okay.
Reagan on Blue Bloods. That's all I know.
Yeah. But so for me, this was the album that started it all for me. So I just dig deep into these songs, but obviously it's my life. I love how pop rock it is. And I think, if the band was to go into a new decade, this album obviously it earned a new generation of fans. I'm one of
Mhm,
those fans.
for sure.
Because in early 2000s, pop was ruling the radio. So unfortunately, if the band went into 2000s with something like These Days or Keep the Faith, unfortunately, it wasn't going to be a big market on radio. So they did the right thing with It's My Life. And but I love Say It Isn't So. Thank You for Loving Me. Um,
Oh, that one, yeah.
but my absolute favorite of this album is Next 100 Years. I love the band
That's a
jam
good
session
one.
at the end, especially when they did that live. Two-Story Town. I also love Save the World. That's one of my other favorites on this album.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love John's vocals, especially at the end. Our love is even stronger than God hoped it could be. Baby, all it takes is just a little faith in me and to feel like that I could save the world. I just, you know, for me, that song is about your significant other making you feel like you are the king of the world and that you guys can conquer anything
Or
together.
Queen.
Our queen. Um, and it's a fantastic album. It's
I think that's the one. This is the one that also made me recognize and appreciate his vision and his hard work.
yeah,
Because I don't think, I mean, I used to read all the Teen Beat magazines, and then now I go and follow people on Instagram. I don't think I know of anybody else in the business that works as hard as he
Yeah.
does.
Well, you know, another thing too is that this started a whole new generation of fans. This is a band that's entering their third decade, you know, 80s, 90s, now you got the 2000s, and it earned a new generation of fans. And I always say I wish the album was called Just Older because it was a band that they were established now. They had nothing left to
Mhm.
prove, even though John continued to prove everybody. But I think it would have been a perfect title to call the album. But
I
let's
love
get to
that.
the next one,
Yeah.
Bounce.
Okay.
Absolutely. I will say this a million times a day. Absolutely underrated. It's one of my favorite Bon Jovi albums. Came out in 2002, right after Crush. I don't know why it wasn't as big as it should have been. But
I
it,
think it was so rock. Sorry, this is your turn.
yeah,
This
it's,
this to me, if I had to pick one that was the rock album, this would be the hard rock album.
yeah. See, I don't really view it as hard rock though. Hook Me Up and Undivided and Bound.
Yeah.
I guess in a way you're right. You know, you have Undivided every day, Hook Me Up and Bounce are kind of heavier, but everything else is poppier,
Yeah.
which is my favorite Bon Jovi sound is the pop rock songs. Obviously this album, you know, had a lot of 9/11 influence, like Undivided, Every Day, you know, Bounce, even though that was about, you know, Bill Belichick as well, in that story. But for me, I love this album because this was actually because Crush I got on the first day, the One Wild Night, which was a compilation live album. But Bounce, I remember this came out in October, but I couldn't get it until Christmas Day. So this is actually a Christmas Day gift. And I remember going to my room, pulling it out and listening. Actually, no, let me back up. I did get this album. My grandmother also got it for me for Christmas, but I did get it in October because I was in fourth grade, and I remember opening up and this is what we were talking about earlier, the magic of buying an album and not streaming it. Going to the
Yeah.
store, buying it, taking it home, putting the CD in, listening to it from start to finish, and then following along the booklet with the lyrics. And I just fell in love with all these songs. It's funny too because there's a song called Joey. So I was in the fourth grade. We were reading a book called Joey Pigs That Swallowed the Key at the time. And it's about this troubled kid that didn't fit in, it was an outcast, blah blah blah.
Okay.
And the album on this is Joey, which is the same freaking story. Joey, who was this outcast and you know didn't fit.
Go
But
Keys.
it was and my fourth grade teacher was a huge Bon Jovi fan. And I remember when this album came out, I went to go like listen to this song, Joe. She goes, I know it's this, you know, and we were just like you know, we really had a bond together.
Oh, that's
But
fun.
yeah, my absolute favorite song on this album though is "Love Me Back to Life."
Mhm.
I just love the way that John, you know, hurt me, heal me, come on, make me feel it. It's one of the underrated tracks on this album as well. I love it, but whole album is fantastic, and I could go on and on, but
Yeah.
what it means to me
For
is,
me, I just wrote down in my notes every day I felt misunderstood and on the right side of wrong, but I went the distance.
oh, I love
And
that.
that was part of that coming out of the postpartum depression and
Yeah,
then, trying to lose baby weight and then trying to figure out how to deal with 3 kids and, that whole thing. So for me, like that, I would put that out. My husband would come home. He had one car. My husband would come home and I would take the keys and I would leave and I'd drive to the state park and I would just let out some of my anger. And this was one of the albums I would just crank. And especially Hook Me Up was just like that would start the bass. And I could get out anger without having to take like a taekwondo class or something.
yeah, wow,
So that's what that means to me is that was my resilience album
yeah, that's
coming
amazing.
back.
Let's go on to the next one. Have a nice
Okay.
day, and it's your turn to go first.
Okay, it's super fast. Can I just throw in though that this right field this left field's right. Sorry.
This left feels right. Yeah.
Yes. I didn't find out until college that I'm actually left-handed.
Okay. Oh,
And and so I've spent since that album came out and I heard the different groove, it helped me to connect my brain more to
yeah.
like stop doing things if it doesn't feel natural. So,
Yeah.
so totally not even a. It just reminded me that of that. But and then the box set. So have a nice day. Uh, okay. Two things is I feel like this is the New Jersey. This is the way to give a New Jersey middle finger. Here you
Yeah.
go. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Have a nice day. And I felt like I was saying that because at that point we were getting ready to leave Pennsylvania and we were moving here to Chicago. And so I was like,
Oh,
you
you live
know,
in, when we get off this recording, talk about Chicago for a second.
okay.
Go on.
So I just did not have a good experience and I was there for 8 years and I'm very social and I try and I'm very open-minded and my heart's this big and that whole thing and you're just in this little small town, this two-story town
Yeah.
that doesn't want to learn and doesn't want to grow and doesn't want to change and would not let outsiders in. And so this to me was this is what I listened to on my drive from Pennsylvania to Illinois
Yeah.
with kind of like a see you later.
See you
Now, the
later.
funny thing is that I have the t-shirt, the album cover t-shirt, but I bought it in a like a raspberry color. And I was at the doctor's the other day, and the lady checking me in, she goes, "Oh, the Kool-Aid Man." And I went, "Oh,
I remember that when I was a kid.
I have got to go get this in black now because I cannot wear this raspberry Kool-Aid Man."
I
And
don't think it, I don't even think
I,
it, I don't think it matters because I went through the same thing when I was in, I think I was in middle school when this album came out. And I would wear the shirts with the smirk and people like the Kool-Aid Man. No, it's not the Kool-Aid Man. It's the smirk and that was a battle every day with people telling me
yes.
it's not the Kool-Aid Man. It's that Bon Jovi Have a Nice Day smirk. So I don't think it matters the color. People are going to
I
just,
know, I know. So
no.
I was wearing that when I was traveling and I was at the Houston airport and I was getting on a smaller plane, like where we had to walk out on the tarmac and one of the guys that was getting all this stuff, he was an older guy and he just looked over and all it is the t-shirt because I like t-shirts that don't necessarily say Bon Jovi, it's going to be this thing or it's going to be the album covers or whatever. And so he just kind of looked, he goes, "Oh, I bet there's a story behind that." And I was thinking, you have no idea. Don't get me
No idea. You don't want to go
We'll
down
talk
that
to you for
route.
hours.
Uh,
But again, it just kind of it's bleeding into the um, welcome to wherever I
yeah.
was I got on the treadmill one morning and put that in. It was the first time I'd really listened to it. And it was like, you're right. You're right, guys. I just need to accept, I wasn't losing all the weight that I wanted. I wasn't making friends. Like I just need to welcome wherever I am and start looking
Yeah.
for the good.
This
And I
is
was
your life. You
always a
live
big
it this way.
fan of like being grateful, but this was like just a good kick in the butt reminder
Yeah,
to look for the
exactly.
good. So this is my I can't say it's my favorite album, but it's up there.
Yeah. Well, for me, so I remember so this is 2000, so August 2005 is when they were putting out the single for Have a Nice Day. And I remember that VH1 had announced that I think it was actually on the band's website, that the premiere of the music video was going to be on VH1 at the 7 o'clock hour. So I remember I was at my grandmother's house. Um, And I remember watching, I think the Gold Digger video was I hate that song and all these different songs I just couldn't stand. Beyonce was on there and blah blah blah. No disrespect, I just couldn't get into it. So,
Right.
but finally, the next video came up and I haven't seen this one yet. And that black SUV pulls up and out came John Bon Jovi. And because they were also going to say this is going to be the premiere of the album cover as well. So I watched. They were like, watch for the music video for the. This was like the internet was becoming a real big thing for the debut of the album cover. So obviously we see John signing the album cover, and it was the smirk, and then the video, and I was hooked, and I was so bummed because I think by the 9 o'clock hour they stopped showing music videos and it became reality TV. So you had to wait over and over and over for the album or for the video to come on. Kind of like It's My Life Story. Every day you had to wait for it to be on radio or VH1.
Yeah.
But so for me, my parents had divorced in 2004. And I remember there was a custody battle, and we were at the time I was living with my mother, and not to share any.
You're good. You're good.
Long story short, I didn't want to live with her. I wanted to live with my dad, but unfortunately, I had to live with her at the time. And like I said, I got crushed on the first day, one wild night, bounce, this life feels right. The box set on the first day, and then Have a Nice Day was coming out, I think on September 20th. And I lived about 2 hours from my dad at the time. And my mother wasn't going to get me the album on release day, and I was super bummed. I remember going to school, super bummed. After school, I came home and my mom said that your dad's picking you up. He wants to take you out to dinner. So my dad literally drove 2 hours, basically, picked me up, took me to Walmart, bought me because the same day they also released the dual disc for Have a Nice Day and for Slippery When Wet. So
Mm.
I got both of those on the same day. So my dad bought me the album and bought me dinner. He took me to Pizza Hut. And so that's like my biggest memory from this album was that because I was at the time was living with somebody I didn't want to live with. I wanted to live with my dad. Um, so songs like I Want to Be Loved kind of resonated with me a little bit because I
Oh,
didn't feel loved by my mother at the time. Um, but so anyway, so the songs like Welcome to Wherever You Are was being a middle school kid and kind of like stick to your guns. I didn't know where I fit in or who I was. I was still trying to find who I was.
yeah.
And songs like Welcome to Wherever You Are feel like, okay, I do who I am actually does matter, and I'll find my place. My favorite Bon Jovi outtake is from this album, Nothing, which
Oh,
I love that song.
okay.
Rumor,
I gotta go back and listen to that one
it's
again.
a gem. So rumor has it they demoed Nothing and they demoed I Am, which got put on the album. But John thought both songs, and they really do. John thought that they both songs sounded too similar, so he took Nothing off the album and gave it to Bo Bice. He recorded it, and he released it as a song.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that on Instagram.
Yeah,
Because
and
that's a
you know,
that's a
I,
man, I love that song.
yeah, and just a fun story before we get into the next one. So, Who Says You Can't Go Home? Like I said, I grew up with a country hillbilly redneck area, so nobody liked Bon Jovi. I remember Who Says You Can't Go Home when Jennifer Nettles came out, and it was the number one country song at the time. Song, first country song for a rock band hit number one with. And I remember going on my school bus and everybody was singing along to it and just loving it. And I puffed up my chest with my Bon Jovi shirt and I go, that's my fucking band right there. And yeah, that was a good feeling.
They'll make fun of me. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
You guys make fun of me for loving this band, but look what half the people didn't even know it was Bon Jovi, which was, yeah, so all right, so next one. This is my favorite Bon Jovi album. Lost Highway, June 2007. I know we're talking about what an album means to us. And that's why it's my favorite because of all the memories I have with this album. You Want to Make a Memory is also my favorite song. And I remember my dad well, let me back up. I remember You Want to Make a Memory came out. They premiered it on CMT Awards in February 2007. I have all these VHS recordings, which, side note, anyone that's listening, I've been slowly putting them on Jerry's Bon Jovi Videos channel on YouTube and also on Twitter. So all my VHS recordings I'm slowly putting up. But anyway, so I played that over and over and over. The video came out, played it over and over and over. And then I remember June to the day it was what was the June 10th, I think was the release day, I think in America. My dad got me on his motorcycle. I hated motor at the time. My dad's car wasn't working. They had to get fixed. So the only way to get to Kmart, which was about 10 miles away, was on my dad's bike. I hated motorcycles and I
Mm.
didn't want to ride it, but I was like, the only way that I can get this album is going on the bike. So sure enough, we did, came back, and I fell in love with this album. So what it means to me is all the memory, with that memory, being a teenage boy. And a lot of these songs too are about questioning, Everybody's broken.
Yeah.
The last
Um,
night, one step closer. And then obviously some relationship stuff too. I was going through breakups. But another thing too that really hits is this was the last tour that I get to go see with my dad. My dad took me to Madison Square Garden, the last show, and I remember him just looking at me, just so happy to see how happy I was to see my favorite band. And unfortunately, he died after that. So there was a song called "Seat Next to You" that when he died, I played that song over and over and over a million times because it brought so much comfort to me on what I was going through. Um, so yeah, I could praise this album all day, but I love the songwriting on it.
yeah.
Like I said, I go on and on, but I better let you talk.
So for us, we had moved it was actually 2006, but then this album came out. And I love this town.
Oh yeah,
Just made me happy because, in Pennsylvania we were so close to Manhattan, and we'd go to we went to Jersey, and I've always loved Jersey. The people I've ever met from Jersey I've loved, so I don't know why they get a bad rap, but I so we would go to those bits to the Manhattan and New York City or whatever, and then we get to Chicago, and it is the cleanest, most beautiful city.
yeah,
And I've lived north, south, east, and west in the United States. And
yeah.
it is so clean. And it was just such a different vibe from what I was getting whenever I go into New York. But the reason that I would probably say, don't hold it to me to this, but the reason I would say that it's probably my favorite album is because this is the album that won my husband over.
Oh really? What's his favorite song on it?
Um, he loves, it took him a minute because he wasn't sure what is the duet he does with Leanne Rimes.
Until We Ain't Strangers Anymore.
He didn't understand that song, and I said, dude, go back and listen to that song. Because like you're sleeping on the couch tonight if you don't go listen to that song and really figure out what it means. I'm not going to tell you,
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's his favorite song. He does like the Big and Rich
Oh
thing.
yeah, we gotta go.
That's just has got so
Yeah.
much energy in it. But this was the first Bon Jovi album that he downloaded to his iPod
Wow.
and that he loves. And I think so. I love this town. But Summertime is mine,
I love that
and
one.
he probably likes Seat Next. I think it's Seat Next to Me.
That's
Yeah.
what's so great about Lost Highway is it's one of those albums that you can put in your car, roll the windows down, and go wherever you want and just have this album play. It sounds like Lost Highway and Summertime. We got it going on. I love this town. They're just fun drive along songs.
Can you
But
imagine being in the recording studio with them when they're doing that? I would
yeah,
die. I would just like I
yeah,
wish I could be a fly on the wall. And that's
yeah,
why I liked some of these clips that they've let out on Instagram of the behind the scenes stuff because
yeah,
I'm now getting from years ago, I'm getting to be that little fly on the wall when they're actually
yeah,
recording and putting songs together. And so
absolutely.
yeah, it's
All right, next one, The Circle, 2009. Back to so a little bit of background, I guess, on this album is that John said that the circle meant, you know, they went full circle. They went from rock to pop to country and back to rock, whatever. I love the album cover. A lot of people question the album cover because like, what does it mean? I think it's all about them just continuing on, their
yeah.
their journey pretty much. But anyway, so what does the album mean to you?
So I got it and I wasn't like over the top about it at first. But it was what I listened to every day. I would drive around the county that I worked in as a social worker.
Yeah.
And it was, so I think I have, oops, I lost, uh, Fast Cars.
Oh, I love that fucking song. Oh my God, what a gem.
That was the one that was sticking out for me.
Yeah.
We
I
weren't
love
born.
I love the note, the line, broken hearts just wind up in a junkyard where memories are nothing but spare parts. I love that.
Yes, yes. And I can't wait to do that on my Instagram. because I use just AI to create the images that I like from that song, from the lyric, those
Oh,
favorite
sure.
lyrics. But We Weren't Born to Follow. That's like, I
Ladies.
think that's just like the song that was assigned on my birth certificate because I have never followed anybody.
And that's good. It's good.
But it was also my 39th birthday, and I was kind of feeling a little bit sad. So when we were beautiful, that was meaning a lot. But if I had to narrow it down to one, it was working for the county's mental health and driving around up to all these homes and these families that are pretty dysfunctional and in situations that are pretty sad. And just listening to the album over and over and over, and Fast Cars was kind of where I
Yeah. I
felt it. So
It's so good to meet somebody that loves that song as much as I do, because most people just kind of, yeah, it's okay. I think it's a gem. Uh,
yeah.
but for me, so my dad died in August 2009, shortly after the We Weren't Born to Follow single came out. And so that was a really tough time to go through. Uh,
Yeah.
but I remember because then I had to move back with my mother, a new school. I was going into a new, because he died at the end of August, so right before the school year.
Oh, well.
So I started a whole new school year in a different school. I was adjusting to living with my mother, who I haven't seen or lived with in years. So that was a different dynamic as well. So for me, everything just seemed so new that like my identity was lost. The only thing that was there, and I still have to say this to this day, the one thing that's been so consistent in my life is Bon Jovi. So the only thing that I really had that was the same that really had a part of my identity was Bon Jovi. And so them coming out with a new album really made me feel optimistic and better.
Oh,
Obviously, I had to wait until November to get the album, but I remember when it came out, I walked to Walmart, came home, and this is like the day of MP3 players. Put it on my laptop, put it on my MP3 player, and I'd walk to and from school, listen to this album. And I love it because that was like the my hideaway from the world. Because
oh, for sure.
I had a hard time making friends, didn't, just different problems I was having during that time. But yeah, so this is like the really album that really pulled me through a lot of that. So
That's
my favorite though, oh gosh, I'd probably say Live Before You Die. I love the message. And it was also because I had lost my dad. He's talking about throwing the ball with his dad. But living life to the fullest and just making the best of it.
yeah.
But back then my favorite was probably Superman Tonight. Um,
Okay. I forgot that was on there.
yeah.
But I put a picture, a screen grab of him on the Nashville Bridge.
Oh yeah.
And I put that on there because there's the line, I don't even know you,
So what does that
but
mean?
there's something about you that I want to save.
Yeah.
And if you go back and watch before him and his assistant walk over, there were three people that walked right by that person.
Yeah.
And my social worker heart just about died. I was like,
Yeah.
and then I saw that it was him coming in. And then just the way that I'm just geeking out over him as a wise person. Okay. So just knowing you just can't run up to that person. He gave them space. He talked, I'm sure his language was calm and everything. And just so to me, Superman Tonight, I'm attaching with him
Yeah.
being observant.
Sure.
And I think that's why you and I get so frustrated with other people is they're not observant. It took my
Yeah.
husband three times to listen to um, the Leanne Rimes duet because he just thought it was strangers in a bar, and I was like,
Nope.
no, no, not at all.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate that about and it shows in the writing of these songs is that he's always aware
Yeah.
and his wife has I think helped to mold him to into being such the flow I can't even say that word
Yeah.
today, the
Yeah.
good person that gives out a lot. Yeah, okay, that
Right.
I'm sorry, my brain is so
That's okay.
squashed. But yeah, Superman Tonight has become my new favorite from that album because
Yeah.
of his actions that day, because he did everything right. another
Yeah,
social worker that had my stamp on it. So,
yeah, we're all in this world together and have to help each other even if we're strangers. Gotta help. All right, next one is What About Now? Came out in 2013. I remember I was graduating high school, going into college, and I remember there was an interview where John said that he was working on a solo album. And then all of a sudden it was a band album. And all of a sudden it was like, here's the release date, here's the tour, the tours before the album. This came out really fast, but I loved it. I remember I went to a lot of shows, just like I do on every album, a lot of shows. I went to a lot of shows. But my favorite is What's Left of Me. We talk about storytelling.
mm,
I love the storytelling and
mhm,
what's left of me. And I think back then my favorite was Beautiful World, but now it's probably What's Left of Me or Pictures of You. It's probably
mm,
my favorite on this album. But yeah, and I also love the album cover because I remember like technology was really in 2013. You could point your phone if you had the Bon Jovi app. You could point your phone at the album cover and it would come to life. Things would go in motion. Band would walk out. But I couldn't imagine like what it would look like in today's technology.
yeah.
Like then. But anyway, go ahead.
No, for me, this one was, you know how the person who introduced me to John was Dorothea. The universe has got a funny way that it works with me, but I had gone through some medical issues and had gotten in with just this awful doctor who literally gave me bad medicine.
Oh God.
And so I'm like, so my husband's like bad medicine, and I'm like, we're constantly going back and forth with some of the lyrics, but I literally when I picked the album up, I didn't listen to it in the car. I wanted to listen to it at home after my kids had gone to bed, and I remember putting it in and just I was just asking, what about now?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to be doing now? Because I had to quit. I was running my own business and I had to close up shop and I was just like, well, what about now? And then that whole there wasn't much left of me at that point because he had gotten like 30 medications in 4 months,
Oh my gosh.
starting me on and off. And so anyway, but that's what the water made me. Um, Probably is my favorite, but as a parent, I am the fighter is I could see him singing that to his kids and I was just like so this whole growing up like literally like it's like we're growing together.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, but the fighter and then that's what the water made me. There's something about that that just
Yeah.
reaches in and pulls it. So
Awesome. It's amazing how you really you kind of have that's the beautiful about music is John will have a reason for writing this song, but then you have a different reason for it. Like what about now? You have your own take of what that song means, and so that's awesome.
yeah.
Next one is Burning Bridges. So this one was kind of with Richie's departure, with the at the time with the turmoil with the record company, this was just a throwaway album. And I know we're not really talking about compilation albums, and this is technically it is a compilation album because it's just an
Yeah.
album of songs that John. So the story was that John was going to tear away from the record company. They had one album left to give. He didn't want to give them This House Is Not For Sale, which was what they were working on at the time. So he said, well, how about we give them an album full of outtakes? And so they went in, recorded some of these songs, redid them. Um, and John went to the record company and said, here, no, there's really no cover. Um, this is it, blah blah blah. And then obviously they work things out. But so
I love the circle of the 40 of the
yeah,
33 though in there. That was just so
yeah,
funny.
good touch. But pretty much here's a bunch of songs in a brown paper bag, and this is your last album to sell. But they worked things out. But I remember I was graduating mortuary school. I remember, and like there was like no like there was no like usually we hear things on the back end, oh the band's doing this and they're gonna announce it, blah blah blah, but there's nothing. And I remember they tweeted one day. Here's two new songs, We Don't Run and Saturday Night Gave Me Sunday Morning, and the album drops later August. So this came out right when I was graduating mortuary school, and I love it because it's a bunch of outtakes, and just like the 2004 box set, you wonder how these not make the album. Um,
right?
my favorite is Saturday Night Gave Me Sunday Morning.
I do like that
And,
one.
and life is beautiful. Life is beautiful, and we all fall down. Have such beautiful messages, and I think it's about appreciating life and knowing that we all make mistakes, but you learn from them and you continue to grow as a person and be better. I know that I went first on this, and I'm sorry. So I'll
You're
let you have
fine.
the next
I
two
don't care.
albums.
I'm just geeking to be talking to somebody that
Yeah.
understands it.
So
The
pretty
notes,
much
the
I
notes that I had were just that I started to focus on life. I had been here in Chicago for like a decade then, and I was learning through therapy how to basically burn bridges from toxic people. So the fact that that came out and then it came out with some, and I have short but many nuances, wink, wink.
yeah.
It's kind of like, what is that song where she says, if you want a love song, because she did the same thing. The record company was bugging her, and she's just like, okay, here it is. You wanted a love song. Here's a love song, and I can't remember who it was now,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah. That one was a fun little short kind of thing. But the burning bridges to me
Yeah.
is where I was literally like learning to build healthy relationships.
Yeah. And burn, the old ones that are tearing you down. And
Yeah.
next one is This House Is Not For Sale, which this album kept getting pushed and pushed. It was supposed to come out in
Oh yeah.
2015, and then it was in the summer of 2016. Then it finally came out in November of 2016. But I love the now. I should let you go first here. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're totally fine. I'm just looking at my notes. Because I did a quad thing. So I've got the year it came out, I got the album cover, and then a picture that resonates. And it's the last time that my kids were all going to be home because my oldest was leaving for college. And so God bless this mess.
This mess is mine.
Is was on there. But then I started kickboxing when Knockout came on.
Oh yeah.
And then again, Born Again Tomorrow, that totally like was parallel with where I
Yeah.
was in some of my therapy with cutting toxic relationships because some of the boundaries I was having to create were parents and siblings.
Yeah.
And so that was, yeah, that was hard. But what I loved is the picture that he found of the roots
Yeah.
and that if you're rooted together, you can make it
Yeah.
through,
And
but
that foundation is rooted, and you can't break down the foundation. These four walls have got a story to tell.
hmm
Um, but this house is not for sale. For me, so obviously, like you pretty much mentioned the album cover, but that's what this album was about. It was about, Richie's departure, the band continuing, and the record company, and but the band continuing, and it was about their strength as a band, and nothing was going to stop them, blah blah blah. But for since we're talking about what this album means to us, there's two songs on there. I remember I was going through. I had finished my internship. I had moved to a new town to start my career, and I didn't know anybody. I knew home. I was pretty lonely, to be honest with you. And I had this album right at the same time of that transition. And I just met a girl, and maybe because I was so lonely, I thought I fell in love with her, but she treated me like garbage. And I tried to be everything that I could be for her, and still that wasn't enough. But eventually she broke up with me, and I was in a really depressive state. And looking back, I wasn't in love with her, or just the idea of having somebody around. But
right.
I remember I was so depressed, so sad. I remember getting into my car one day, getting on, I-90 and just driving. And I had this album playing, and Roller Coaster came on. And there was something
Mm.
about it, it was like a connection. I was like, life ain't no merry-go-round, it's a roller coaster. That means you have your ups and downs. And the song just spoke to me so much. I see you thinking twice. I wish I could read your mind, move up or out of line. Um, I remember it connected me so much. I put it on repeat probably for a couple hours,
Mm,
and it pulled me right out of that hole. And I had some kind of epiphany or whatever because I was so clear-minded again. I was out of that depressive state and I was happy. And
that's
thank
awesome.
God, because a month later I found my now wife.
Mm.
And she taught me what love is. And so we go into Born Again tomorrow. I remember when I met her, I knew I was in love with her the day that I knew that was true love and I wanted to be with her. And I remember posting a selfie of me. There a line in Born Again Tomorrow, who says that scars don't fade. What's the line? Drawing a blank on it. It's such an I gotta pull it up because it's such an important
Okay.
line. Um, I, usually I can read it, I can say it off the top of my head, but
I know, right? But
um, but
with the
for
record
Born
button going.
um, don't have to end up where you started. Heaven loves the brokenhearted. You learn from your mistakes. Bones grow stronger when they break. Who says the scars don't fade? So that was, me about healing and moving forward. And I met my wife, so I really thank Roller Coaster and Born Again Tomorrow for allowing me to really rethink the situation and heal and move forward because I met my wife and
Yeah.
she's still here.
There was one more song on there for me too that my husband is obsessed with pizza. And so he had been working for years to try to come up with his own
Sure.
dough and all that stuff. Anyway, we are now known as the pizza people. So we have friends over. So it was come on over to our house.
Oh yeah, making
Like, come
yourself at
on in.
home. Yeah.
Like, and I taught high school for a little bit, and I would always tell the kids, the first Friday of the month, walk in my door, like just walk on in because we're going to be doing
Yeah.
pizza. If you need some place to go, whatever. And so that was that. I actually have not listened to this one or the next two after in the last probably 6 or 7 months. And so that's on my to-do list
There you go.
next week. So yeah.
One thing I want to add about this album too is obviously, in the US we only got the 12 songs, which coming up to our house was the last one. But as always, the international editions always have bonus tracks. So like stuff like I Would Drive You Home, Color Me In, Touch of Grey, Goodnight New York. Later a year later we had Walls and When We Were Us. All fantastic. Technically they are outtakes because they didn't make the standard album. But I love I Will Drive You Home. It's one of my favorites.
Hmm.
That's about,
Definitely.
longevity with somebody, I think. But anyway, let's go to the next one.
All right.
2020 obviously was starting out to be a different kind of album, slated for May of 20, and then the pandemic happened, George Floyd, and so the album got pushed to October, but you get to go first, what this album means.
Now, basically, that's the year I finished my master's in social work. That's the year, even though it was quarantine.
Oh gosh,
That and so for me, this album is the epitome of why I went into social work. It's about being aware and it's about like working out your stuff so that we can just be one and we can, you know, do what
yeah,
you can. Like you
exactly.
can't do what you can, do what you can. And so I was like, this is great. And so I ended up finding a job that was really, really good for me
Did you have to
because
start it remotely at home?
I did most of it remote.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it was that to me just his face on the front just kind of encapsulates what I was feeling at that time. My youngest son, I only have one son, but my youngest is a boy and he's autistic. And so he graduated in 2020, and then I graduated in 2020, and my oldest graduated with their bachelor's in 2020. And so that song, even though that was the hit from that song, it was about I've cut those chains, right, of those toxic boundaries we were talking
Yeah,
about, and have been able to raise a family that we're all going out and doing our thing, and that is to make this world better. And so
absolutely.
that to me, it might, I might not listen to it enough, but just looking at
Yeah.
the album cover, just
Yeah.
I'm automatically back in 2020, sitting on the couch, like praying for George's family and
Yeah.
praying, all my clients and all that stuff. So,
For me, but obviously not because of COVID. I really enjoyed 2020 and 2021 just because of all the memories that I've made through those 2 years. Because the world was so different. The world had slow. We live in such a fast-paced world, and things had to be done now. Blah blah blah. But 2021, things slowed down in the world, and you were allowed more time with your family. And obviously, it was a scary time too because of the pandemic.
mhm.
But I remember it was such a scary year, 2020, that I was really looking forward to this album because the pandemic happened in March. I was like, okay, well, at least we have, and the tour got canceled. And I was like, okay, well, at least we have an album coming in May. Well, then that got pushed because of the pandemic to October. But that allowed songs for like Do What You Can and American Reckoning to make the album.
Mhm.
Um, so I remember Do What You Can. When I listen to Do What You Can, it has two different meanings to me because when that song first came out, it was about doing whatever difference you can to make in the world to help your fellow person. And now, when I listen to it now, it's a reflective of we made it through. Um,
Yeah,
then songs like American Reckoning, where it was about George Floyd. And so I listen to these songs now, and it takes me back to 2020. Um, I was going to make another point to that, but yeah, the whole album is a moment of time. As John has said, it's a moment in time and takes me back to that year, and not like I said, outside of the whole COVID thing, reminds me about how joyous 2020, 2021 were because it gave me more time to be home with my family and really just enjoy. I discovered painting. I discovered, learning guitar. Get
awesome.
now my wife and I, we were supposed to get married in 2020. That got pushed a year. Um, but yeah, it just allowed her and I to get closer even.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's what that means to me with that. And then
that's fun.
Shine is my second favorite Bon Jovi song. It was actually my wife's and I's wedding song.
Oh, fun.
Um, so yeah, so the Shine proves that John can still write a great love song. So yeah. All right,
Yeah.
last
I
one.
think I do have a little bit of sadness for the 2020 because I started to hear his voice start to struggle. And
Okay.
and I was like, oh, please take care of it. Please take care of it. And then I have a friend who is in Vegas for something for work, and he sat through a concert, and he said he just had to get up and leave. But
Hmm.
that was the one in the documentary where um, he went backstage and Dorothy is like,
Yeah.
and
Well,
so now
yeah.
we've got him getting healthy and getting back, and which
Right.
brings us to
Yep.
2024.
So here's Forever. So obviously, we had Burning Bridges, which was the record company, and then 2000, this house with Richie and Burning Bridges and the band as the strength of a band. And then you had 2020, which was the pandemic and this and that. And then so Forever was a really big term because it was John, as John said, it was a return to joy. And just a joyous album celebrating 40 years. And I love this album. Um, I think my favorite is Waves. I just
Mm.
love that song. But it's a just a great album. And, I wrote you a song and Living in Paradise reminds me of my wife.
So
Um,
can I say something that might piss other people off? I'm not a fan of them putting waves and seeds next to each other
okay.
because it seemed they don't necessarily sound the same, but the message maybe is the same. And I wish that there had been, when you're listening to the album, a little bit more space in between them
Yeah, see, I don't
because
see, I think of
oh,
waves as, ups and downs and how life can take you up. It's kind of like roller coaster. But then seeds is about growing as an individual and as a person and you know that's how I feel about this.
That's a
So I
good
don't,
one.
yeah. So maybe that'll help you kind of,
Yeah.
you know. But anyway,
Um, I did, but right before I got this, because I got the album through Amazon, but right before it came in the mail, I had somebody that told me that I made it look easy. And then the album comes and I'm like, oh my gosh, but it wasn't, but we made it look easy,
yeah,
but it wasn't. And so then I was just like Bon Jovi forever. And so that cover was just like it's forever. And so I will just end my part about the albums being my backdrop, is that I believe that we will live forever, that life is just right here. And I am not doing well physically. I'm terminal. And so I'm legendary and I'm going to live forever. And so is my band. And if I go before them, then I will be there with open arms. And if they go before me, then they better be there
yeah,
with Phil X's energy. And I thought that I want to thank John Shanks so much for finding Phil X because I
yeah.
couldn't have picked a better, not
I know.
replacement, but
And he shines on this album, with, like on Waves and stuff. Um, but yeah, this album is just celebrating 40 years, and I can't think of any right now, but like all the little special not like Blood on Blood, he puts in, we made it look easy, Legendary is about the end of the band, band's career and all that. But anyway, I want to thank you, Stacy, for taking the time to come on to do this episode with me. I think this was a fun subject that you picked. I
yeah,
know you mentioned your terminal, and I'm really sorry to hear. I know we talked privately
good.
before about it, and that's why, I have such a long list of people. I'm not. I have probably about 200 people that are still waiting to come on the podcast. And
Thank you.
I go down the people that have signed up. I go down the list. And I remember you messaged me saying that you were terminal, and it meant a lot to you to be on the podcast, and so that's why I skip. I
Yeah.
put you on top of the list.
My
Oh,
palliative care team said I needed to start living. I
yeah,
needed to start living with the time I have left because I don't know how much time I have left,
exactly.
and stop watching the clock. And so
Yeah.
that's when I went and literally pulled out all of I think my husband, but we just started a vinyl collection again, but I
Wow.
pulled out all of my Bon Jovis and
That's
that's
awesome.
all I did for a week. It was like I need to get reset on the message that they've constantly sent for 40 years. Look at me getting on. Ugh. For
That's
40
fine.
years, they've constantly been sending messages of, "You've got this. We've got this. Let's do this."
Yeah.
And that's why I will forever be a Jovi junkie. And
Well,
people can make fun of me. I don't care.
who cares what people think? What I admire about you, Stacy, is you're so strong-willed and strong-minded. You have an aura about you that you're optimistic, and if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't be as optimistic as you are. And I think that it's great that you're just enjoying life and living life to the fullest because we don't know what's after this. But I know this, Stacy. I know that I love you as a friend, and
Thank you.
I'm really glad that
You,
we're
brother.
connected. Even this podcast episode kind of allowed me to see how many similarities we have with this band. And I'm going to continue to enjoy talking with you on Instagram. And
Yes.
I'm glad to call you my friend. And please
Yeah.
keep that strong mind that you have and that will to live. Because nothing can take that away from you. Okay.
Well, my goal right now is, I do little AI images for
Yeah.
whatever for my favorite lyrics. And I toss back and forth between a bunch of songs, but there's always a Bon Jovi in there.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just going to stop and just focus on Bon Jovi for a little bit.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say is I just listened to Justin's song that's coming out on
Oh,
his first.
yeah.
And there's another song that by Daughtry called "Long Live Rock and Roll."
Okay.
You might really enjoy because he just pulls it in a really creative way. So
Long live rock and roll.
yeah, and it's the
Okay.
music that's on my Instagram. But yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me. I've looked forward to this. This is what I've literally been living for, and now I can live for the next thing. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
You're welcome, Stacey. Stay on the recording, but
Okay.
Thank you, Stacy, for coming on today.
Yep.